Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the meeting held June 13th, our work session, and the board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. You'll notice one board member is absent today, Board Member Parker. We have two people wishing to address the board. First, we'll have Chad Bishop. If Chad, you'll come up and introduce yourself, and Carly will be timing you this evening. And remember, 5 minutes, and to keep on topic. And if you have anything, have you already given it to? You know the rig, so I don't really need to read this for you, Chad.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Bishop. I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. In multiple previous public input statements to this body, requests have been made to have this board, through its membership in the Associated School Boards of South Dakota, disassociate itself from the National School Boards Association by exercising its vote, and if necessary, the withholding of its dues, in order to bring about this change, especially if said dues are paid with taxpayer funds. These requests have been made specifically in response to the NSBA's letter to the President of the United States on September 29th of last year, where it was suggested that parents be pursued by the federal executive in the same manner as domestic terrorists. On June 14th, the day after my last statement to this body, making the same request, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards announced their June 10th decision to not renew its membership in the NSBA. In the statement, they cited actions by the NSBA's leadership, which wasn't just one person, last fall needlessly harmed the school board relationships and inflamed partisan tensions. Those actions caused more than half of the state school board organizations across the nation to distance themselves from the NSBA or to drop membership entirely. Also reported on June 11th, the Omaha World Herald reported the board of directors for the Nebraska Association of School Boards voted Saturday to formally cut ties with a national organization that spurred controversy last year by calling for federal investigations into threats made against school board members. The article also reports Nebraska politicians also reacted negatively to the letter. U.S. Senator Ben Sasse called Garland's resulting memo a political hack job in a statement, and Governor Pete Ricketts said the federal intervention would have been an absolute outrageous abuse of federal power meant to browbeat parents into not going into school board meetings. You'll have to excuse the use of a Fox News link to the article, which led me to the original public notice. I searched for more neutral stories from the Associated Press, but could not find them. I don't know if we've ever discussed propaganda by omission or the moving of the Overton window. I think we did. I believe this makes 25 state school board associations that have withdrawn from the NSBA, each citing, at least in part, the letter from September 29th and the results of the investigations into the NSBA. I would like to see South Dakota be the next to withdraw and allow the NSBA to slide into the dustbin of history where it belongs. Towards that end, it is my request that this body move through its membership in the Associated School Boards of South Dakota and through the withholding of any and all dues to disassociate from the National School Boards Association. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chad. I'm going to take point of order and move to the good news report before the approval of the agenda. And I know, Bev, you were wanting to speak, but this is going to be especially for you. We have a resolution. Whereas Beverly Chase has served the Sioux Falls School District 49-5 for 35 years as the Adult Education Secretary at Southeast Tech, the Comptroller's Secretary in the district's finance office, and for the past 32 years as the business manager's executive assistant and de facto secretary to the school board. Whereas Bev has, during these 32 years in the position, ably served 3 business managers, 7 superintendents, 12 school board presidents, and 28 school board members. And whereas Bev has recorded in the minutes the approval of all the construction contracts for and the naming of 15 new K-12 school buildings during her tenure, and whereas Bev has accurately filled 49 volumes of minute books in the last 32 years, and whereas Bev has consistently led the technology revolution in the finance office by operating the first word processing typewriter in the district in the early 90s, digitizing all the school district minutes back to the 1800s, and transitioning to paperless budgeting, travel reimbursement, and school board meetings in the late 2000s, and whereas Bev has conducted 36 school elections, providing thousands of election workers training to conduct fair and efficient elections, and providing hundreds of thousands of voters the opportunity to choose their school board members and determine the outcome of 2 school bond and 2 property tax opt-out elections. And whereas Bev received the National Association of Secretaries of State Medallion Award for Leadership in Election Technology Innovation from the South Dakota Secretary of State for outstanding leadership in piloting the concept of vote centers, which make it easier for individuals to access the polls by allowing them to vote at any polling place of their choosing. And whereas Bev has worked enthusiastically over the years to create a fun work environment for her coworkers, including establishing the annual IPC Halloween party in 1992, which was still going strong this past school year. And whereas Bev also showed her love for Halloween and for the Sioux Falls School District students by volunteering to read to elementary school students each Halloween while still wearing her handmade costume loved by all. And whereas Bev, over the last 35 years, has touched the lives of countless students, coworkers, taxpayers, and general members of the public by doing her part to make their interactions with the school district, whether in person, at a vote center, or simply reading the minutes online, positive, efficient, and effective. Whereas we, the school board, wish to express our deep appreciation and thanks to Bev Chase on behalf of the members of the school board, the administration, and the entire school district. Now therefore be it resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting of the school board of the Sioux Falls School District 49-5 held Monday, June 27th, 2022, and a copy of this resolution be given to Bev Chase. Bev, please.
Well, that was very nice, thank you. But I do have a few words I would like to say.
Oh, let me start my timer.
So, as I reflect back on 35 years of working for the school district, I find that overall I've had more successes than failures. But remember, this was a long time ago that I got hired. We don't do things like we did back then. But it was an uphill battle to begin with, because upon hiring me, the assistant superintendent at the time said, "You are not the best person we could put in this position, but you are Native American, and we need to fill those numbers." So I took that as a challenge to show her what I could do. Ultimately, I outlasted her by 31 years. I worked for the adult education supervisor, Ed Wood, the man, not the building. While there, I recovered thousands of dollars of uncollected tuition from former students. I helped to implement the first truck driving classes by helping the Department of Transportation to write a manual for the truck driving class. I moved to the Instructional Planning Center to become the comptroller's secretary. Then in 1990, I applied for and became the executive assistant to the business manager. On Dr. Harris's last day, he told me he was a little worried when Ron Mattice hired me, as I was so young. I was 35 at the time. But he could see I was doing a great job and his worries had vanished, and that was the best compliment I ever received. The district has grown so much since 1990. In 91, we opened Roosevelt. We sold the old Washington building to the city for $1 and constructed a new Washington High on the northeast side of the district. And then we did the CTE Academy near the new Southeast Tech site. Southeast used to be scattered in 5 locations throughout the city. We traded property with the city of Sioux Falls and built the new Central Services Center. We built Terry Redlin on the old Bancroft site. We built John Harris, Annie Sullivan, R.F. Pettigrew, Discovery, Susan B. on the old Mark Twain site, Rosa Parks, Sonia Sotomayor on the old Jefferson site, Memorial Middle School, McGovern Middle School. We built Thomas Jefferson and built Ben Rifle, which opened last year. Axtell Park and Horace Mann became specialized schools. Many schools were closed and the properties were sold. We used to have South Sioux School, Emerson School, Longfellow School, the Beetle Building, the old Southeast Tech buildings at 15th and Western and on East 14th. We had Joe Foss School, the old Ben Franklin School, and Irving School. We tore down the old Lincoln Elementary building, but kept that property. And this year, we are planning another elementary school. Our payroll has gone from $3.7 million a month in 1990 to over $15 million in 2022. That's huge for the district, for the city of Sioux Falls, and the state of South Dakota. There have been countless curriculum changes. We went from junior highs to middle schools. We added new pathways for high school students with the CTE Academy and the new tech program. We used to have all the students with special needs go to the old South Sioux School. We are now more inclusive, culturally diverse, and really tech savvy. Our students score better than the national average because of our great staff and outstanding curriculum. I have lived through 7 superintendents. Maybe that's not the right way to say that. Dr. Harris, Dr. Weiss, Dr. Kiner, Dr. Keegan, Dr. Holman, Dr. Maher, and now Dr. Stabum. More assistant superintendents than I can remember. 3 business managers, Ron Mattice, Kevin Kaufman, and Todd Beek. 2 comptrollers, Arlen Niederhoff and Ken Moser. And 28 board members, 29 if you count Doug twice, because he left and came back. And many, many principals and administrators. That also means I have lived through and helped with 6 superintendent searches and a couple of Southeast Tech president searches. 31 years of preparing the budget for adoption, 29 years of creating a budget book, and have conducted 32 elections. Because I had been a polling place worker since 1980, I became the election supervisor of the district in 1994. When purchasing moved out of IPC to Central Services, because up till then, our purchasing supervisor was our election supervisor. In cooperation with past Minnehaha County Auditor Sue Roust, we ran many successful regular and special elections. Minnehaha County, the city of Sioux Falls, and the school district coordinated and cooperated in conducting elections up until 2012. Eventually, we started conducting our own school elections the same as every other school district in Minnehaha and Lincoln counties on our own with paper ballots and hand counting. But we still ran an efficient, legal election with less costs, saving taxpayers' dollars. I am extremely proud of the fact that in 2011, the Sioux Falls School District successfully piloted e-poll books in the state of South Dakota. And for that achievement, I did receive the National Association of Secretaries of State Medallion Award for Leadership in Election Technology Innovation. Since the pilot in 2011, 9 counties in South Dakota use e-poll books, and 8 of them use the vote center concept. Our current e-poll books are simple to use for the voters, the election workers, and the administration. To pilot e-poll books, a Sioux Falls legislator had to introduce the legislation to allow for that. And we passed both houses with an emergency clause so the district could do the election using the e-poll books in 2011. That was the second piece of legislation that went on the books introduced by the Finance Office. The first was to change the law for the date school district elections could be held. Previously, it was second Tuesday in April or the third Tuesday in June. But with the legislation change that we made, we could hold our elections any Tuesday between the second Tuesday in April to the third Tuesday in June. I have read more pieces of legislation over the years than I ever dreamed I would, and I never thought I would go before the legislature and testify on a bill, but I did that too. That same year, I spoke to Good Morning Sioux Falls to explain e-poll books and vote centers to over 500 movers and shakers of the Sioux Falls. Never thought I could do that either. When I first started in the business office, which is the finance office pre-1992, the budget was hammered out over a weekend by the superintendent and the business manager, line by line, and then the board went through the budget line by line at the next meeting. When Dr. Keegan came, the budget was prepared by the cost center supervisors on a modified zero-based budget system. We prepared a budget showing last year's budget, the new year budget, and the increase and decrease, at first using ClarisWorks, which is not very strong, and then switching to our Excel software. In 2010, the great minds in our IT department worked with the finance office to create a homegrown budget prep system which allows the budget to be created in Insight and once approved, uploaded into the district's accounting software. The program makes the budget easier for administration to create budget scenarios, and then the board has an efficient way to consider the program budgets and the impacts of any cuts that may be necessary. I have put together hundreds of agendas and filled over 49 volumes of minute books. In 1990, when I started in this position, the agendas were all duplicated on paper, compiled into notebooks. Then the notebooks were driven to and hand-delivered to the board members' homes. We did it that way for 17 years. Then in 2007, ITS once again rescued me from drowning in paper and created a paperless system of delivery to the board members. Dr. Holman allowed me to pilot that paperless system in April 2007. It saved money and so much time. It is so convenient for the board members too, and the agendas are stored for years. The board agenda was, and it still is, posted to the district's website, and the public has access to it there. The minutes go on the website too. Just this year, we changed from the homegrown process to a system sponsored by the Associated School Boards of South Dakota. Board meetings have gone from 3 to 6 hours long, lasting sometimes till 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, to a business meeting of 1 to 2 hours at the end of a business day. We used to start our meetings at 7:30. Based on the actual number of people attending the board meetings, mostly our own employees, we changed the meetings to 5:30 p.m. We still have about the same number of people attending the meetings, but now we conclude in early evening instead of early morning. Over the years, my position has changed the duties from drowning in paper and binders to having everything securely placed on computer files. Over the years, I have read and cataloged all the minutes into the file director system. If someone wants to read the minutes from 1899, the very fragile book does not have to be opened. We can simply call them up on File Director and we can print copies from there. The minute reference files, that's what MRF stands for, are also on File Director system. In 1968, business manager Art Hale devised a numbering system for the exhibits, and we have nearly 20,000 minute reference files stored on File Director. When I worked for the comptroller, one of my jobs was to audit in-district mileage. to figure the mileage between locations. I had this huge map on the wall, and I had a string and a ruler, and each inch of string was equal to 1 mile. I would have to map a route with my finger and string to figure the mileage. When I moved to the executive assistant position, I had to bring the in-district mileage claims with me to the new position. My new boss, Todd Veek, saw how much time we spent auditing the claims, so we had to come up with an easier, faster, and more efficient way to process in-district mileage. Now we use the bus routing system, which figures the mileage between buildings. We input that mileage into our home-built mileage system. Our IT people really are the very best. So our end users do not have to figure out mileage. In July 2018, I turned over the auditing of the in-district to the finance office clerk. If there is ever a dispute, we go to Google Maps. We didn't have that in the 90s either. To say I'm proud to have served the district all these years is an understatement. Don't do it. I have worked for many years with the most intelligent people I have ever known. I appreciate each staff member's contribution and have witnessed the district do so many good things for its students, staff, and community. I'm retiring now, so someone else can continue making innovations, finding easier, more economical and efficient ways to get the job done, and continue the district's mission. Thank you for allowing me to serve you for 35 years.
Bev will definitely be missed by the board and the district. She has done so much, as stated, what she stated, as well as the resolution, and just a wealth of knowledge. And what's wonderful is she's had time to train her replacement, and has even created books for her, so that when Bev isn't here, she'll have a book to go to find out how to do something. So just thank you for all you've done for our district, Bev. Really appreciate it. I'll skip back to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is approved. On to conflicts of interest. There were no new conflicts presented. On to the consent agenda, items 9A through H. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That is approved. On to the supplemental consent agenda. First is 10, oh, they're both to Sanford, it looks like. So 10A and B, one to Sanford Medical and one to Sanford Power. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes with one abstention from Board Member Ryder. On to reports of the superintendent.
This evening, we will have a report. Sarah Clausen, come on up. Sarah's going to give us a report on some programmatic things with our English language services related to the WIDA assessment and the access assessment scores. And she'll be happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you for your time this evening to give you an update on the English learner programming and the proficiency scores for this year. A little background for you on our programming. At the elementary level, we have the Elementary Immersion Center located at Jane Addams Elementary, where we house our newcomer program. Newcomers get to stay in this program for 1 year upon arrival within the country. We ended this school year with 63 newcomers, and we started the school year with about 25. So some exited at the middle of the year, and we've had this many come throughout the year. Once they're finished at the Elementary Immersion Center after that year, they transition to any of our 11 center-based sites, whichever one is closest to their home. At those sites, they participate in their regular classroom instruction with additional support from an English learner specialized teacher with small group instruction every day. We ended the school year with 1,454 elementary students in those 11 center sites. At the middle school level, we have 4 middle schools with full programming. That includes newcomer programming. For any newcomers that come at the middle school level, they can go straight to their center-based site. After they're finished with their newcomer year, they will participate in an English language development class, also known as ELD. And they also have access to sheltered instruction in the 4 core areas: math, science, social studies, and English language arts, as needed. So as their proficiency goes up and their need for that support goes down, then they do not participate in those. We ended the school year with 553 middle school students in those programs. And similar to middle school, high schools, we have programming for newcomers all the way through level 4.9 at all 4 high schools. So they just attend whichever high school is their home attendance center. All EL students participate in an English language development course to give them support. And then similar to middle school, depending on their WIDA score and how much support they need, they have access to sheltered content in the core areas as well. And we ended with 558 students in the high school level. This year, we started an English language development curriculum study that lasts 2 years. So we started this year, we'll go through next year as well. K-12, we did start a really deep dive of our EL data, what that looks like, how our English learners are performing, both on this assessment that I'll show you, as well as in the classroom on MAP, South Dakota assessment, every other assessment that they participate in as well. We are working on reviewing current research in the area of best practice for EL. As that research deepens, we need to know what's going on in the country. So we're looking at that. We will be implementing the WIDA model as an interim assessment. The state has adopted the WIDA model, so we'll give that in October. So we have a really good look at where students are progressing in their language in the fall instead of just in the spring when this data comes in. 612, they did a really deep review of the ELD standards that WIDA released in 2020. So they took those standards and did a really good job of backwards designing what our ELD classes will look like moving forward. They aligned those standards, they put them into semesters, which they should be assessed. They created quarterly assessments to see where students are progressing and where we might need some reteaching along the way. And then this spring or this fall, we'll choose materials that support those goals along the way. So any curriculum or programming changes will come after the study. I mentioned WIDA, but for a little context, WIDA stands for World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment. It is located at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That's where it started. And they have now grown to a nationwide consortium. There's currently 41 member states, territories, and federal agencies. So this is a really good body to get some data of our state compared to other states in the WIDA consortium, as well as research in the area of best practice for English learners. And they also provide professional development for both teachers and administrators and how to work with English learners in the classroom and in the schools. And then the big one that we'll talk about is they also provide the summative assessment that we use, the Access for ELLs 2.0 that we use yearly for our federal compliance of language proficiency. As I mentioned, our summative assessment is called Access for ELLs 2.0, and it measures language proficiency, both social language and academic language. So it's how students can manipulate the academic language of math, science, social studies, and English language arts. It doesn't measure their content, just their language within each of those. And then also in the 4 domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. All students identified as English learners have to take this test annually. So every February, we are testing madly to get all 2,600 that took the test done with their test. The testing window is late January through the end of February. So the data we'll look at is a snapshot of the students we had in that month. Our student group is very fluid. So we're getting students in all the time, and they're leaving us all the time as well. The proficiency levels on this test range from a 1.0, it doesn't go lower than that, to a 6.0, that's the highest they can get. And then they will be reported in tenths of a point along the way. And this is what the state uses to determine which students can exit the EL program in the state of South Dakota. So each state in the 41 member states sets their own exit criteria. WIDA doesn't tell us what that should be. They let each state do it. So in the state of South Dakota, our exit criteria is a 5.0 composite. That's it, simple to look at. Late in the fall of 2021, the U.S. Department of Ed approved a waiver submitted by the South Dakota Department of Ed for a secondary exit criteria. So as of late fall 2021, in South Dakota, students can also exit with a 4.0 composite on their access and a 3 or 4 on the South Dakota ELA assessment. So as of the date that we were notified, an extra 65 students exited in last year's cohort group. There were some really excited students on that day. They didn't know it was coming. We measure both exiting and also growth towards exiting, and that growth is set by the state. It depends on what their initial access score is in the state of South Dakota, and then they measure either 3, 4, or 5 years to exit after that. And that growth towards exiting and exiting on time is 10% of each school performance index. So again, that snapshot of what the school district looked like in February of 22, we had 2,622 students identified as English learners who took the test. 2,612 of them took the regular access assessment, and 10 of them took alternate assessment, which is identified by their IEP team as needing an alternate assessment. But students who do take the alternate can't exit the program. Just a little context, by the end of the school year, we had 2,633, so that's just from March till the end of the year. With that snapshot of who was here at the end of the school year, this graph lays out where they all land on their growth towards proficiency. So you can see we have about 1/3 of students who are in that entering and emerging, the very beginning stages of language acquisition. About 1/3 of the students are in the 3s, which is really common here and really common in the nation for kids to be in the 3s. And then about 1/3 of students, which is more than we had last year, both in the 4s and in the 5s. As I mentioned, we look at growth as well as exiting. So this chart shows how many students grew, either had no growth, grew 0.1 to 0.4, or had 0.5 or greater growth. The goal for most students is 0.5 or greater, but depending on what their actual target was for each year, some of them, their target is less than 0.5, and some of them, their target is more than 0.5. You might be wondering why it looks like no kids are growing and listening. If I showed you the same pie chart of just our listening growth, most students, I'd say probably 60% are already in the 4s, 5s, and 6s. So if they're already in the 5s and 6s, that growth isn't gonna show up when I measure growth. They're just already at the top. And then the grand finale, the students who exited in 2022. We had 162 exit with the 5.0 criteria and 58 additional exit with the 4.0 or greater and the South Dakota ELA assessment score. Something I'll point out in the next slide is the number of first-time test takers. We'll see that in the cohort group, but we had about 100 more first-time test takers this year than we did last year. And most of them were at the high school level in kindergarten. So once students have their first access score, they're given an exit cohort year. So that's the breakdown of this chart here. We had 534 first-time test takers. And last year we had 437 first-time test takers. So we have more first-time test takers this year than last year. And you can see 60 of them at that 9th grade level, which is unusual. We usually have them more at the elementary level. So in 2022, we had 65 exit with their cohort year. We had some exit that were supposed to exit in previous years, but I'm really excited about the students who exited in early. So 2023, 2024, 2025, we had students exit early who didn't need to exit until those cohort years. One of the staples of our programming is summer school, which we provide so students can continue their language learning and language acquisition throughout the summer. So here's a couple of fun pictures of what we did this summer. We had 63 students at the Elementary Immersion Center, and then 49 migrant students joined them as well. This is their outdoor scavenger hunt, learning some vocabulary and really some hands-on context for the vocabulary. Middle school, we had 73 participants. They learned about service learning. They learned the language of the service learning and the things in our community. And then they were also able to serve. They made some blankets for project warm-up, along with some other fun activities for them to be the ones who are giving instead of always receiving. And then at high school, we had 3 sections of English language development, 1 section of personal finance, 1 section of speech. All of these were credit-bearing classes, so they can earn credits towards graduation. There were about 20 students in each section, so about 100 total participants. And our English language development classes took some really great field trips as well. The first 2 pictures are their trip to Southeast Technical College, so they can learn about some of the career options and schooling options post-high school. And then they also did a great tour of Avera. I've been on that tour. It's about 3 miles in about 2 hours. It's quick. And this is them out at the helicopter pad. They go to almost every department within the hospital to learn about many different opportunities within the healthcare industry. What questions can I answer?
Thank you for that report, and this is your first year at this position, so thank you for what you're doing. It's always interesting to me. You highlighted that the students come in and out, and so if you look at the numbers, never match up for all of the testing. So I think our school liaisons and our teachers at the building are really important to make sure they're making the parents know how important for them to be there for that testing, to know that that's, and and you try to do that, but it shows the transient nature of some of the students in those programs. So it's really important to try to make sure they have that information, that they know that how important for them to be at school. It'll be interesting, I think, for us to see as well after this next year, the curriculum study, to see what other things we should be doing to help improve. But those numbers showing the early, exiting of the program, that's exciting to see. And of course, those ones that haven't yet, who should have by now, that's hard too. And you throw 2020 in there and 21, that makes it harder. But I know you all are working hard to get that done. So, what are there things that you would like to see that are different, that we're not doing or not addressing as a district? I'm sure you've had discussions and all that, but what are the areas we could be doing better as a board to help you?
I think one thing that we did do this year that I appreciated that Dr. Stavum led the charge on was doing listening sessions with each of the different communities, language groups within our city. We got some really good feedback from those parents, and we're taking that feedback straight to the liaisons and working on how we can support what they requested within the schools. Curriculum-wise, I bring information to the team and I take their feedback as well. So I have ideas and they have ideas, and we will come to something that'll be even greater than we already do.
It's just amazing to me with the number, it changes daily of how many languages we have in our district. How do you, it's not like we just have Spanish speaking students or just Kanami, it's the number of languages and then trying to teach them all English and then make sure their parents understand what we're teaching them. It's just amazing that you all can.
It's so much fun. Yeah, it's the best job ever.
Any other questions or comments for Sarah?
No, I just was going to add, similar to what you said, that, with the changes with the pandemic and the number of students that have moved to South Dakota from such a wide variety of places and the impact that that has had on the numbers that are enrolled and the ages that they're coming at, I think it was 60, you said, ninth graders. So just a lot of students maybe in places that we haven't always been accustomed to having them, which then causes you to kind of pivot a little bit and shift that too. So there will always be those varying challenges. And so I think it's good to have this time to really look at the curriculum needs and how can we best help the highest number of people possible, whether it's a language difference or a new age that we're dealing with or a technology change or something. So we just always have to kind of be on our toes and ready to adapt. And whatever we come up with in the fall, we'll have to continue to adapt going forward as well. So lots of changes.
Having attended one of the listening sessions, it was so clear that the parents there have the same hopes, dreams, desires for their English students, or soon-to-be English-speaking students that we all do, and that you're partnering with them in ways that they can continue to be proactive with their students is really encouraging and will certainly have an impact, whether it's our graduation rate or the students just finding what they're going to go into to be successful in the world is making a difference. So keep up the good work. I'm going to take a point of privilege and just add, I was at a meeting this afternoon. We were talking about workforce development and the significance of people joining the workforce whose first language is not English, and that our local and state and national economy has become very dependent upon our ability to support people with a language need. And we're ground zero for that as students come to us and we help them develop proficiency. And it's important to all of us because of the workforce needs more so than ever. And even in doing that, in one of our other district priorities, our own diversity of workforce, and this is crucial to that. So we need EL teachers, and we need people to develop those skills to then come and work for us and everybody else.
And I think it's important to note that we're not trying to replace their language with English. We're trying to add.
Yep.
And so that's how they become so important in that workforce, is that they can then help their own communities, whether it's a customer service type of a job where it's answering questions in the medical field or at a shopping center or whatever it might be. It's not that we aren't valuing their own language. We want them to continue that and add the English on top of that. So sometimes I think there's a misunderstanding about what we're actually trying to do, but important for them to be bilingual for sure.
Seeing no other questions or comments, do I have a motion to acknowledge the update on the English language proficiency report?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's acknowledged. Thank you, Sarah. And just a reminder, we do not have a work session next week due to the holiday. We did a double one kind of this last month, but so the July 11th will be our board meeting as well as Southeast Tech right beforehand. So that's when anybody's watching at home or in, that's when that is all going to happen. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.